The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. The following video is presented by the Center for Educational Media in partnership with Professional Educators of Tennessee's Leader U Conference. For more professional development videos, check out our website at www.mtsu.edu/CEM.
Hello, I'm Carolyn Marino. I'm on the Board of Directors for Professional Educators of Tennessee, so I get the privilege of introducing Tammy Boyer. She is someone that if you have just a minute to talk to her, you will not be sorry, because she is extremely enthusiastic about it. I just asked her a couple of questions, and she has a lot of energy, so I love it. We're going to be very we're going to be very attentive to you today, I'm sure. So she has been a math teacher. She's been an administrator at the high school level, and she has taught in middle school math, which alone right there speaks volumes. She has worked with I'm going to look this so I don't get it wrong. She has worked with the American College of Education, and one of the things they're working on is allowing us as teachers to come and take professional development that we enjoy and that we've already done and bring it to the college and apply it towards your degree. So if that is something that you're interested in, I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to you about that. Her dissertation she's working on right now, because she's soon to be Dr. Boyer, is really showing the impact that longevity of administrators have on student success. And with the turnover of admin and teachers and that in the district, how does that impact your students? So with nothing else more, you have so much to tell us. I'll give it back to you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for being here. Again, I am Tammy Boyer. Today we are going to talk about creating collaborative learning and how that happens by kind of redefining, making some new expectations of attributes that students, leaders, teachers bring to the academic setting. So again, I am Tammy Boyer. I work with the American College of Education. I am a graduate from them. I did my master's in educational leadership and then followed into that administrative position that we were talking about, and loved ACE so much I decided to come work for them. I'm going to talk about a little bit of what Dr. Taylor talked earlier in her opening remarks. I'm a current doctoral candidate as well. I get ready to defend my dissertation here next term, so that's exciting for me. And did it all online, so once again, if a master's or a doctoral program or even an EDS is something that you're interested in doing, there's some cards on the end of the table. You can feel free to just grab one or track me down when we're all done here. I work with organizations to bring their professional development that they do and actually give you graduate credit towards a program at ACE. I'm a former educator. I was an MTSS coordinator. I was like middle school math teacher, in third grade through fourth grade, and the high school administrator. And most importantly, my job, military spouse and mother to military child. So thank you again for having me. And I want to mention just being a military spouse has provided me a lot of opportunity. I've taught in Hawaii, I've taught in Georgia, I've taught in Florida, I've taught in Virginia. And so bringing all of that together and seeing the different aspects of what each state requires has really given me a different lens to look through and really investigate what's going on in the education system. So I wanted to mention that because one of the things that we're going to talk about today are general learner outcomes that I actually kind of worked on in Hawaii. I was on their accreditation team back in the day when Hawaii's school system was just getting accredited. So those are things that we're going to talk about today. So the question is, how do we create collaborative leadership? Anybody know? How do we do it? Does it just mean our leadership? Well, you guys are going to have to get involved here because this is going to be a long presentation for me if I'm the only one talking. Go. Yes, ma'am.
Well, we were talking about that earlier. Trust. You got to be able to trust the people that you appoint leadership roles, and they can be students. I was over the Lighthouse Coordinator team for 3 years now, Leader in Me, and it's one of the best things I have done because you get to see young people lead, and it's just wonderful. So anybody in the building can lead.
Anybody in the building could lead. Yes, you are correct. And so one of the things that I focus on when it comes to anybody being able to lead are the attributes. Like I said, the people bring naturally, right, to the academic setting. You know, you think about it right now. You can think about that student that's outgoing, right, or that administrator, or that teacher, that parent that's outgoing, right? Sometimes they're ambitious. You know that student that's ambitious. They just want to make you happy, right? Some are very, very helpful. Some are curious. And some are perceptive. So we're going to use these types of attributes to talk about how we create a collaborative leadership. Because that collaborative leadership happens, for me, it started at the classroom. So one of the activity that we're going to do today, I actually used to do with my students. I did it at the beginning of the year, and I did it when they came back from holiday break. And the reason I did it is because it's never about me. I can't put rules on the wall and expect them to follow them. They all come from different places. They all come from different understandings. So we spend the time to identify what it means to be certain individuals in the K-12 setting, and we let that develop and organically grow to help us help each other in the classroom. When we're looking at defining what a collaborative leadership looks like, we're going to start with the basics, right? We're going to explore those core components of teamwork. What is that, right? Because don't you think those components for teamwork is different for the leadership team than it is for the grade level team? They might be. How about student teams? How about a baseball team, right? Those components that really make that collaborative and teamwork work are different for each group. We're going to identify the contributing factors. We're going to understand the uniqueness about those, right? We're going to establish a definition and then redefine what that path to success is. So that's kind of what we're going to concentrate on today. We've talked about what collaborative leadership means. Who are the stakeholders? We talked about who can be a leader. Are there stakeholders or are they the same? All of them. It's everybody, isn't it? You guys, one person back here. Come on, help me out. Just tell me who a stakeholder is.
Anybody.
Anybody. A student? How about the custodial worker? Yeah. How about the cafeteria, right? How about the bus driver, transportation? Absolutely.
The maintenance men.
Maintenance men, parents, right? The auntie that watches the child after school is still a stakeholder, right? It's those student-facing teams is what we call them, right? Student-facing teams. So anybody that's going to interact with a student is a stakeholder when it comes to K-12 education. And so I asked my team, tell us who stakeholders are. And when I mean my team, so I work for a college now, but I stay in communication with my little county in Virginia that I live in with all the educators. I said, tell me what you think a stakeholder is. So we did a little word thing and a caboodle. So teachers, kids, guardians, resource officers, you can see all those people, right? And they all had something different to contribute and the impact of how the success looks in the K-12 system. So this was very interesting to me. I've done this presentation before, and so when I heard Dr. Taylor speak this morning, there's one word up here that she mentioned that we're going to go over, okay? But what drives the culture? Because remember, can you have success, long-term success, in an area that has poor culture? You can't. You're going to have churn, aren't you? People are going to be leaving, jumping ship all the time. So what drives success? You've got behaviors, your beliefs, your structures and your systems, like she spoke about this morning, and then that ambiguity. And that's what we're going to touch on today. And if you don't already know, which I'm sure you do, they all impact the individual experience, and they help or hinder the ability to perform. So that word ambiguity, when I was kind of freshening up this presentation, I was looking for a really cool font to like write ambiguity, right? And so if you ever look and you like click on the font and you're just scrolling down and looking to see what looks interesting, I was highlighting the word ambiguity. This is what came up. And that is an actual font. That is the MS Outlook font. So isn't that interesting? Because if we talk about what we expect students to know, if they don't know it, right, and we're not outlining it, that's what they're hearing. They're hearing, I need to pay attention and blah, 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 because it's not connecting with them, right? So going back to those attributes, that's what we need to look at. How do we connect all of that to make it important and have ownership? So again, these kind of focused areas. So let's start here, okay? What do you see when you see this picture?
Teamwork.
Teamwork,
I think interracial. I mean, there's
okay, right?
Everyone's involved.
Everyone's involved.
Diversity.
Diversity. I want you all to come from a student's perspective, okay? I'd like you all to come from teacher's perspective. Teacher's perspective. Teachers. And everybody here are administrators, okay? Think about what we're going to talk about and what I asked you to kind of break down. So, as you're thinking about your area, how would you, as a student, define what it means to be a community contributor? So someone start writing down a little bit and come up with at least 3 things. As for teachers, what does it mean? You can take the word apart. What does it mean to be a community? What does it mean to be a contributor? Redefine it. Remember that very last thing, redefining things to make it work for us? I can't just in my classroom tell my students and put community contributor up on the wall as a guideline or structure of the classroom and expect them to know what it means. An administrator can't walk in and say that to a teacher because community contributor to one person might mean something different to another. So remember when we were talking about attributes, this particular one is that outgoing person, right? That's that outgoing person. You know, they may think that community is just chatting it up and knowing everybody, but how much are they contributing to that? And what contributions are they bringing to the table? Because the goal is success, student success. All right, so we have our students. You guys want to tell us from a student's perspective, you might think it would take or to be a community contributor?
Okay, we said using everyone's individuality, though, to build a strong team, because that acronym is Together Everyone Achieves More. Mm-hmm. So you put what you're strong at, and you help build on all of those strengths to make it stronger total. And then also we said respecting others' ideas, and when you're sharing your ideas, you respect each other.
Excellent. So when you're sharing ideas, you're respecting others.
And then you communicate openly, and again, that word respect comes back to play, where you respect. You may not agree with everything, but you're respectful with each other.
Absolutely.
And you keep an open mind.
I love that, right? So what they've said is from a student's perspective, they're coming into the classroom and they're just defining how to work together and how to respect each other, right? I mean, if you could walk away every day saying that was a check from the classroom, those would be 2 pretty big ones to put at the top of the list, wouldn't you say? And so that's what the activity is about. So now we've got our group of teachers. From a teacher's perspective, what are we?
We were talking about creating a community, providing leadership. We also went into creating some structure. And you came over here and gave us a hint on sharing the responsibility throughout the community. And then we came up with a couple more. Mr. Johnson believes in always having a positive attitude and not a toxic attitude. Everyone has a voice. Everyone in the community has some kind of voice. And we were talking about voices, okay? You can still disagree, okay? Even, I don't care if you've been married, have the best marriage in the world. you're going to get into a disagreement. I
Absolutely.
don't care if you have the best relationship with your students, you're going to get into a confrontation. And sometimes you build the best relationships after you have a confrontation, and then deal with conflicts appropriately. And I think that's what we kind of were talking about.
And to continue on with, thank you, Mr. Lawson, for doing that, is we're in an alternative setting, and our kids have to raise their hand before they speak. Now, they can speak at any time, but the rule, one of the rules that we have is please raise your hand. And I love it when my teachers say, thank you for raising your hand. That means a lot to me as an administrator and as that student being thanked by the teacher.
Absolutely. And I'm going to circle back around to that on one of these and ask you again to talk about that. From our teacher's perspective, anything else to add there?
Yeah, to facilitate and motivate the students to apply their talents and skills to achieve a common goal.
Excellent. Yeah, that common goal, right? You've been there as administrators. Some teachers are on board, some teachers aren't, and yet they still have to work together. And then at the end of the year, when the state tests come back, where do things lie, right? And isn't it easier when we're all working together, from students up and administrative down?
Speak the same language.
Absolutely, and that's what this is about. Once again, you can take this to the classroom, you can take it to your team leads, you can take it to your administrative group. So speaking of administrative group, yes, sir.
We didn't fully collaborate, we just kind of worked here. But
That is okay.
Our part of it is, I said, well, first, what is community? And we decided a community is a social group comprised of unique individuals with unique attributes. And then how can you contribute to community? We said foster collaborations, optimize teamwork through individual strengths and weaknesses, and then applying that as administrators to, sort of trickling down, how might you foster those collaborations is, I thought of modeling, not just giving like a checklist, like you go meet with the second grade, third grade, whatever. Model that, this is how you have a discussion, and then pass it on. And it's not going to be perfect the first time, but through practice, that collaboration would hopefully
Absolutely.
Reap benefits.
And it gets better every time. You're going to see that just from what we're doing right here, right? Because we're going to do this several times with different things, and you'll get better at it, and you'll be like, oh, I could do that in a second. All right, our other group of administrators.
So we kind of come up with several things. Everyone has input, whether it's good or bad. You learn from prior experiences. And when you walk into a classroom, do you see community or ownership in the classroom that teachers are fostering with students? Same thing with teachers. Do you see teachers interacting with each other, building community? And basically with the mindset that we're all in this together, regardless. And also buy-in, and how do you know that people have bought in, and what does that look like? And relieving ambiguity, making sure things are clear and concise so people know what to do and how to do it. And if they don't know, building that community and that openness and relationship of trust and honesty, that they can come and be vulnerable and say, I don't know what that means. Can you help me with that? And try to work through and make sure that it's clear for everyone.
Excellent, thank you. One of the things that I do when I do this actual exercise with students is I have those large sticky around them, and I give every student a little sticky pad, right? So when we're talking about this and we're talking about what it means to be a community contributor, one of the things that helps facilitate the conversation is allowing them to write it down and go stick it up there, and they don't have to say it was them. It starts the ideas going. It starts getting, what does this student think? What does that student think? And the goal is to bring it all together and end up with what it means for the classroom or the leadership team or whatever to be a community contributor. Why? No ambiguity, right? We've all agreed that this is what it takes. This is how we demonstrate mastery of being a community contributor. So our next one. See, I start with pictures first, and you kind of have to think about what does that mean? We're putting stuff together. We put stuff together in schools, right? Right? That's how we build words, we build math, we do all kinds of stuff, right? So what are we doing here?
Everything's a puzzle that fits together somehow.
And every piece has its own place.
Absolutely. Every piece has its own place, and we're building things. So producing stuff, right? So what does it mean to be a quality producer? Because once again, now we're going with that like ambitious student, right? You know, the one that just wants to get the work done so fast and be the first one in, and that quality work, right? So what does it mean to be a quality producer? Now, we won't go around to everybody, so this time I want everybody to come from the student's perspective and write one thing down for me. Quality producer, what, as a student, what would it mean? No spelling errors? That would be okay, right? That would be good work if there were no spelling errors, but does that matter, right? Being a quality producer at the student level, what are you bringing to the table to say, I'm demonstrating mastery, that what I produce is quality work? Don't you think for students that quality in general might mean something different from one student to another, right? Absolutely, because one might, even their difference in taste indicates the kind of quality or what they might think quality is, right? So when you're establishing rules or guidelines for the classroom, or again, your team leads, your administrative team, all of that, everybody comes with a different perspective, and you can't get anywhere with collaborative leadership when you have ambiguity. So we're outlining it. So let's start back here. Tell me your one thing. What does it mean to be a quality producer from the student's perspective?
Successful application of whatever the standard was that was being taught at the time.
Right.
So a student will be able to, in order to have this output.
Mine would be doing my best.
Doing the best.
Doing the best and improve every time I do it, and try to learn from those that I needed to, and not just shut down instead of trying to move forward.
Yeah. And I'm going to take that a step further. If we as educators don't give them the expectation of what quality looks like as well, whether it's whatever the measurement tool is, whatever the assessment tool is, right? We've got to be upfront and transparent about what we expect. Administrators have to be upfront and honest about what they expect from their educators. Parents to teachers, teachers to parents, families to communities, and vice versa, right? Nobody goes anywhere with as far as producing quality if we don't know what's expected of us. So, student perspective.
I'll second what you said. It's doing your best. Everybody doing your best. Whatever you have to offer, give it your best.
Absolutely, right? And again, sports is a little bit different, right? Because sometimes people are good at baseball and sometimes people are good at basketball, and I was a gymnast, and so that's talent. That's talent, kind of, right? I mean, obviously, once you get there, your coach has an expectation for you to produce quality work. But when you're talking about the school system, that really does, that identifying that for students is key. Student perspective back here?
Well, the thing about Mr. Johnson and I, we're in an alternative setting, and when I was in a regular school setting, this did not go well at all. But we are high on the effort that you give us, okay? Mm-hmm. We're not real big, don't get us wrong, because y'all may be totally against us, but we're not as big, okay, I said the word as big on test performance, okay? Because these kids do nothing, that's why they're in an alternative school. So we believe a quality producer shows effort. We also added, and through this effort, they're taught how to reach a goal, because when they leave school, they're going to be at a job, and the boss every day is going to give them a goal. So if we can teach them how to reach goals in high school, we're doing our job.
And we have to also, to add on to Mr. Lawson, that effort is trying to reach that mastery level. But mastery level for our students may be different from an AP student's mastery level. So the word mastery might intimidate me as a teacher a little bit, but it also may intimidate a student. So you need to identify, if we're going to use that word mastery, what it means to that student who has been in trouble, zero tolerance, or whatnot. What does that mean as far as doing an Algebra 1 class or a U.S. history class? It may mean that they made a 75, but they did all the notes. That assessment might need to be more than just a test grade. Do we put an assessment on the fact that they put out the effort to do all the notes? There's a hodgepodge of things for our students that we have.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so for these groups over here, I'm going to come back to you in a second because I want to caveat on that for the next thing that we talk about, and I'm going to get what you are saying about the quality producer, and I'll come to you first on this next one. So what's this? What do you see when you, what do you think about?
Information.
Information, right? Yeah?
Some of them are the same, but there's different things in the middle of them that some...
I see diversity. That's all I see. Different shapes, different colors, different diversity.
And they're not all the same level. They're different levels of students, so part of it's based on how the material's included, but the students that you get, be whatever school you're at, they're coming at you from a different level. And a lot of times what I find is that the kids I deal with, some of them have been sitting there since elementary school. Somebody's told them how dumb they are, or by the time we get them and they've made it to the point of being at that alternative because I made somebody mad and they don't like me, so they put me out of the school. These kids already have a bad picture of themselves. So one of the things I think that we have to do as an educator is show them that you may be at this different level, but some of the kids that I've found that people have told them they were dumb are some of the smartest and most capable kids I've ever seen.
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why I love this activity, right? Because if you're doing this in the classroom, it doesn't matter whether you're an alternative school, a varied exceptionalities classroom, right? They're sitting together and determining how they're going to define this for themselves. They're actually, believe it or not, they end up challenging each other, right? Like, you really think that's what quality means? Let's make sure we do it this way instead. And they're collaborating, right? And they're leading. And they're allowing a student-centric environment to grow.
They're building on each other.
They're building on each other. Is that what you were going to say? I know I saw your hand up.
Well, yeah. It was a group together, and in my classes I communicate with that a lot because we have a lot of discussion. And maybe my lowest student may have the right answer, and then another student will build on that, and then another student will build on his, and they all give each other a pat on the back and a round of applause because everybody contributed to the answer.
Absolutely.
To reach the goal.
Yes, yes. So we were talking about that quality producer. And the reason I wanted to come to this real quick is because we kept talking about communicating appropriately, right? Telling the students what we need from them. Administrators telling, not just saying, oh, you've been a teacher before, right? I mean, have you ever walked into a new school and they just said, well, just follow the rules, right? You're a teacher, just follow the rules, you know what to do. Is that setting the right expectation for you to really achieve success in your job? So if you have students defining quality producer, then what does it mean for them to effectively communicate either that to their teacher or to each other? You see how these are starting to build on each other as far as the growth and what they can use to define their classroom setting. So think about it from the teacher's perspective now. What does it mean to be an effective communicator? So everybody write down one thing. I'm going to definitely focus on these groups because they didn't tell us that they're quality producers. So what does it mean? What does effective mean? Because you've got that communicator. You might be thinking of that about me right now. It's like, just pause for a second. That just talks, right? Is it done effectively? Right? At the student level, at the teacher level. How do we really set the expectation so it is crystal clear?
when you have an atmosphere or an environment when students are not afraid to tell you they do not understand, and that you use another perspective, maybe involve the other children to help explain, and they learn from each other that way. You've got to build that first thing so that you'll have it the rest of the year.
Absolutely, and I love something that you just said. You have to build it so they're not afraid. What do you think about approaching classroom guidelines like this, or team expectations, administrative team expectations from this perspective? Do you feel like there's fear involved? Because you're talking, you're going, what does this mean for us? The hope would be that when you walk away from the table, push your chair in, that you've got a clear understanding of what the next steps are to be successful. So let's start here. Effective communicator. Tell me what you've said about effective communicator, and then tell me how that impacts quality producer.
I tried to be concise. I said be clear, be proactive, and listen.
Be clear, be proactive, and listen.
And then what was the second part of your question?
How does that impact the quality producer?
You can't be a quality producer if you don't know what to do.
Exactly. So these kind of go hand in hand, right? How about us over here? Yeah. What did you say about effective communicator?
What I said about effective communication is differentiating has to be considered in the classroom because everybody doesn't learn at the same level. Equitable practices to meet the needs of students, knowing your students, and what are the desired outcomes, doing, frequent formative assessments to determine are the kids really understanding? Because I think sometimes as adults we think we're effective in our communication because we create the lesson and we know it from backwards to forwards, but are we getting those desired outcomes that can determine whether or not the students are really learning? So I think those are some things that have to be considered in terms of being an effective communicator in the classroom.
And I think everything that you just said leads right back to that quality producer, because we can't have students produce quality work without all the things that you said. And I also enjoyed you saying we as teachers feel like we know what needs to be done. And that's what this is all about, right? Because it's our job to model, right? It's the administrator's job to model for the teachers what effective communication is, right? And it's our job to model to students what effective communication is. We cannot assume that they know any of these things, right? One of the great things about doing this activity in the classroom is while I'm walking around and listening, I'm doing my assessments right then and right there. I can listen and I can know where students come from and the kind of language that they speak and whether they call a sofa or a sofa a couch. Believe it or not, those make a difference, especially when it comes to state assessments, right? Language is also a barrier, and not another language. What we call things differently, and military children who travel around from region to region. I could go on and on about a lot of different things, but when we're talking about effective communication, right, it has to come from the teacher first to set the expectation and model that appropriately. I'm going to see if you have anything to add, and we've got one more here. Anything on effective communication?
I just said they're able to give and receive meaningful feedback using clear and concise language.
And meaningful feedback is critical, right? That reflection stage. You've got to look at it, and you can't build who you are and go to a new level without reflection. Anything else?
Pretty much building on top of what everybody said, more simply though, just no expectations are left unknown. And of course that can be established with the guidelines about how to communicate inside the classroom, facilitating that.
Right, absolutely. This is one of my favorite ones. And when we start talking about this one, you're going to start seeing how these build upon each other, because we've already touched on this a little bit. So what is this sign saying?
There's lots of ways to get to the same goal.
Lots of ways to get to the same goal, absolutely. I used to tell my son's math teacher that. She'd say, well, he's not answering it like it's in the book. I said, if I get directions to your house, I can probably go 3 different ways. If the answer's right, why do you care if how he gets there? Well, he has to show his work. I said, but I'm a middle school math teacher and I do it differently than you do, and that's okay.
Learning has multiple directions.
Learning has multiple directions. So this sign actually is one of my favorites. It's that self-directed learner. Now let's go back to what we talked about communicating effectively. We said, we don't know if the student doesn't tell us, but if you set the expectations for them to be self-directed learners, what have you just done? You've answered that question, right? You've solved that issue. If you set the expectation of what it means to be a self-directed learner. But this time, I want you to come up with one thing from the view of an administrator. What does it mean, administrator? If you are an administrator, what does it mean for you to be a self-directed learner? Or you can come and say, what does it mean for my educators to be a self-directed learner? One of the things that Dr. Taylor spoke about this morning is when you're sitting at the table and you don't like necessarily what you see, you change tables, right? She talked about that, right? And so I want to mention this because I was an educator for a long time, as you've seen. Then I did MTSS, and then I became an administrator. And I came in and I was a self-directed learner because I came in to professional development and learned how to establish a grade book. As an administrator, that was one of my professional developments in my school district. Appropriate? No, right? That was not giving me the skill set that I needed as a brand new administrator. So I had to then learn where I could get appropriate professional development, what type of professional development I actually needed, because I was an administrator at one school and then I moved to another school. And if you've ever moved schools in between even one district, you know the culture there is completely different. And what you need in one school is completely different than what you need in another school. So if you are not a self-directed learner, identifying where your gaps are, right? So did anybody say, as an administrator, I'd like to see the teacher identify their gaps and go find something? Tell me what you said.
Well, I was just thinking of so many things in schools that either you're given a manual with no directions to go read it, or if you're kind of self-directed, you can read it and figure it out, and then maybe find pieces once you get your bearings. And I was thinking about, but you have to create that environment of success for that person where they feel vulnerable to say, I kind of understand it, but I don't. Right. And then he came up with the idea when we were talking about productive struggle. Sometimes we get involved in things and we have no idea what we're doing. We have a little bit of confidence that I think I can do it with all the right pieces, but you don't know what those pieces are until you start to dig into it and say, oh, this is missing, that is missing, that is missing. So you have to kind of make some assessments about what's there and what's not there.
Absolutely. And I want to step over here for just a second because I didn't mean to be eavesdropping, but I heard you talking about training somebody. And you said, I almost did a little too much for her, right? So did you find that you kind of caused her not to be a self-directed learner?
I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out.
That is okay. But you know what she learned about you? She learned that you have a gift, right? And you can be something that helps her fill those gaps, right? And that's really what a self-directed learner is. Someone else said earlier, we all come from different starting points. We mean that about our teachers, but for whatever reason, we don't mean that about our educators. We think they need to sit in professional development for the first 3 days before school starts and get, here's a list of what you can select from. How many have ever one time gone to those and said, man, everything that I need is here? Anybody? Right? So one thing that I have experienced so I've been in the education, I was in the K-12 system for just almost 20 years, and then been with American College of Education 7 years tomorrow. Wow, that's just, I've just realized what day it was today. Hello, everybody, welcome to class. Sorry. But one of the things that I did when I taught in middle school is the administrator said, you go to this one, you go to this one. They actually told us which ones to go to. I was not a fan of that at first, right? But you know what it did? It brought us all back together. It made us share what we learned. And we all actually got more from that experience than just picking what we wanted to do. So again, that self-directed learning piece is critical because we do expect have diversity in the classroom, all of that, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily come to it when it comes to educators and our development. And so we're left on our own to go find things. I think things are getting better with lots of new establishments and organizations coming together to assist educators, but self-directed learning. And you had your hand up a few minutes ago. My apologies, we kind of circled back around, but here we are.
I totally forgot. No, I'm kidding. So, coming from the world of the military as well, it was all about the results.
Right.
So I remember the old adage that would always be shared, effort without results was meaningless. So now you go into the world of education, and maybe not so much unlearn that, but understand that it took the different increments of effort to get to the results that you want. So it really debunked the effort without results was meaningless. But as an administrator, you realize everybody, students and teachers, they all come with different levels of reflective disposition. The ones that are more reflective and have the with-itness are self-directed regardless of what you do. They'll find how to get from A to Z. So the trick was helping to improve the levels, students and adults, with reflective disposition. So I found it was always about building the self-efficacy. And like what you said with the professional development, what do you need and how do you need it? And how can I facilitate that and let you just run free?
And some teachers are going to be in a position where their administrators are not willing to listen to that. And that goes back to that sitting at that table piece, right? If you have the passion to be in the K-12 system and it's still there and you don't like where you are, right? Use that passion though, right? Because that's where I come from. That self-directed learner was me going out and doing other things after hours, on weekends, trying to get the skills that I needed to stay in the administrative position because I felt so passionate about it. But when I couldn't make any headway, I decided to come to a college that I could then talk to educators, because just because my district and my top administrators were not listening to me doesn't mean that yours aren't, right? And so when it goes back and you look at the self-directed learner, this kind of ties all of this in now, right? We've got their community contributor. They're learning really about how they're part of the community and where they start, right? Then we've got the effective communicator, the quality producer, right? Yes?
One of the things that comes to my mind is that you almost have to do it to learn it. We talked about putting theory into practice some other place. And that is so true in education. One of the things that as an administrator, I wish that we would have to do is to actually go in and teach a lesson and meet those standards ourselves. I've known some principals that may not have taught a class in a decade, but yet they're doing an evaluation. Well, would you want a doctor to perform surgery on you that has only read a book? No,
Right.
They have to keep their skills sharp. I believe you have to be in the classroom. I'm lucky I got to teach at least one class each year, and I know what my teachers are going through because I've been there and seen the challenges. I've not just from the outside looking in. I've been in that arena, so to speak, and I wish more administrators, as far as, because we have to pass this test every year to be able to evaluate and all that, would actually have to at least once a year teach a class and meet those 14 standards.
I think that is a wonderful idea, and that kind of goes along with all of these other things, that effective communicator, right? Bring that to the table. If the door's not open to your in your administrative level in your district, how do you effectively communicate it to open that door, right? And have those conversations, those hard conversations that Dr. Taylor was talking about this morning, right? And she was talking about how we're all leaders. So if you are the sounding board for your team or your school, right? How do you all get together and utilize these types of things to make your culture better, to understand how you can do things differently, right? And get...
The thing about him was he was still the principal. teaching a class. It's not like he went in and watched somebody, and then when I watched him, I was like, oh my gosh, that's how it needs to be done. Instead of telling us how it does, why don't somebody show us? Why don't they give us a class in college and show us how it is supposed to be done?
And you will find that it's different every place that you go. And that really, from my experience, that has been an administrative or a district decision, right, about what that looks like. Dr. Taylor mentioned this morning again about not being on the same level, not being able to even identify with somebody's talking about because you haven't experienced it. And so I do understand what you're saying, because that connection piece is very critical. And again, that's why I hold this kind of activity so close to my heart when I'm in the classroom doing it. Again, first of the year, and then when they come back after the holiday, have you changed? Do things look different? Can we identify them differently? And we've said a lot about ownership, right? Doesn't this give students ownership? Doesn't this give teachers ownership? Imagine you sitting in a workshop the very first day where you're all back to school, you're getting your dusting the stuff off, getting your books on the shelves, right? Meeting, signing out your textbooks, and you do this and say, what does this mean for us? Yes?
She and I were having a conversation earlier, and I just thought of this when one year when, as an administrator, I decided, like, for the first 30 days, evaluations were going to get ready to start in September. So I told the teachers in my group, I said, for the first 30 days, I'm going to come in your classroom, tell me which one is the classroom you need the most support in. I'm going to come in as a student. Use the team rubric to just kind of see from the eyes of what a administrator, but I wasn't coming in as an administrator. And just let me give you some feedback on things I saw from the vision of a student. And I asked them to trust me, and we had a conversation, and their lessons got better because no one else sees them teach outside of a formal evaluation process until we get ready to come in. So students are their evaluators, and students don't know what they don't know because they don't know what they don't know. Absolutely. You know, and so that helped them to be more relaxed when we were starting to come in. Because I had already given them some feedback, and then they gave me some feedback as to what they thought, you know, and so they had to change their mindset and say, okay, what do you think your students learned, or what were the outcomes? So my main question was, when you're done with your standard that you say, you know, students will be able to at the end of class, how many students met that expectation? How do you know?
Right.
The ones that didn't, how do you know? You know, and when we started having those conversations, it started to open their mindset about outcomes and what I'm looking for at the end of class, and our students actually meeting that, and they did a whole lot better on their evaluations.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Yeah, in the classroom, one of the things that I did was an exit ticket. Every student had a sticky notepad. They had to write down one thing that they learned, and they just slapped it on the door as they left, and then I'd grab them real quick and staple them together and go, first period, and then second period, right? And I go back after the end of the day and I go, okay, you know what? First period got this, but second period got this. Same lesson. Why did they get different things, right? Then when I became an administrator, I'd have my new teachers record themselves and go back and watch themselves teach. Then my teachers that had been there for a while, they were like, well, how come you're not doing that to us? I said, you guys, I'm not doing it to anybody. I'm asking them, saying, if you really want to learn from what you're doing and how your delivery is, record yourself. Doesn't matter if you're in this classroom 1 week or 10 years or 20 years, right? Because once again, it's back to that reflection and growing piece. When I went to middle school, not when I went to middle school, but when I left elementary school, we'd gone to a new duty station. So I'd put my resume out to be an elementary school teacher, and middle school principal called and said, I just found your resume. Would you be interested in coming and interviewing? I said, well, I'm at Busch Gardens in shorts and a tank top. She goes, yeah, but we need a teacher to start on Monday. Can you come, please? And I said, well, I've got my son in tow. She's like, I don't care. Can you come? I said, well, I don't really want to teach middle school. Can you come? I think it might be a good fit for you. So I go over and interview in shorts and a tank top, get a call on the way home that I have the job, and was a nervous wreck. Because now I'm teaching 6th grade math and 6th grade language arts. 6th grade language arts, that was nothing. I had that was good. But 6th grade math was a bit of a challenge. It was kind of stuff I hadn't seen since college, right? In Virginia, not like any of you would know, but in Virginia, 6th grade math includes every single piece of math that you are going to see the rest of your K-12 life. You get bits and pieces of it all. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? It is, right? And then we have another dual class where you can get 6th and 7th grade all together because they're accelerated students. Then you have one that goes all the way to 8th grade, and I'm like, but if they miss the critical skills in 6th grade, how are they going to pass 8th grade? Anyhow, get my soapbox, put that one away. But one of the things that they did brilliantly, and if you are an administrator and you can make an impact in your school with your new teachers, one of the things that they forced me to do, I'm not kidding you, forced me. For the first 2 weeks of school, I had to take 3 of my planning periods and go sit in another teacher's classroom. For the first 2, I wrote about them and what I would take back to my classroom, right? For the other one, I wrote what I wouldn't take back to the classroom. And I did that for 2 weeks. And then after that, I had to go see a different teacher once a month during my planning for the first semester of school. Most valuable piece of information that I could have ever taken away, right? Because I will also, something that I did not mention, I'm a career changer, right? My undergrad is in marketing and business. I used to work for Anheuser-Busch theme parks. I designed their park brochures. That was my job. I had a child, decided I wanted to stay home, and now is the time to become an educator. I chose education because I was part of the junior achievement. I'm not sure if they have that around here, but I did a lot of stuff with junior achievement. So that really got me interested in education. So when I became a career changer and got into the school system, I did not have any formal teaching training. I did not have to student teach. I went, I passed my exams, I got my provisional license, I did the 3 additional classes that they told me I needed to do, and ta-da, you're a teacher, right? Now, some people are born teachers, some people are born talkers. It just, but even walking into that school system, right, as a brand new middle school teacher, having that valuable information was so critical because I, again, got to pick things that I liked and take back to the classroom and look and go, I would never do that. And it was okay, right? It was okay. All about that self-directed learner. But you see how this is the activity where we end, the self-directed learner? Because it means so much in defining things. I say where we end, but we have one more. And I really struggled with finding a picture on this one. And as you're looking at the pictures, I'll tell you. So when I moved over to a college and I decided to come to work for American College of Education, I was in charge of developing an entire field team. So like the booths that you see outside, I was the very first boots on the ground, and I would travel up and down the East Coast and go to all these conferences and talk to people about coming to college with us. Transition, I'm growing a team now. And so I hire this younger individual who was also an ACE graduate, and I was training her, and she was always on her computer when I was talking with her, right? And I finally had to say, what are you doing? I'm trying to train you. I'm trying to talk to you. Do you know what she was doing? She was taking notes. She was taking notes. But as somebody old enough to be her mother, that was not connecting that. It was infuriating me because it came off as a bit dismissive. So I had a hard time coming up with these pictures because what does it mean to be an active listener, right? And I'm not judging anybody because I think I'm very close to a lot of people's age here, right? So an active listener means something very different when I was in school than it does now to kids, right? I started our presentation saying about a military spouse, and I said a military child. He's not really a military child. He just turned 26. But growing up in the digital age with a phone in his hand all the time, he is quite a different active listener because I can look at him all the time and go, what did I just say? He can tell me word for word, right? So now, as a teacher's perspective, what's an active listener look like, right? What does it look like for you, for your coworkers, for your teammates? But what does an active listener look like for a student? And how do they define that? The student, how do they define what it means? Because are we allowed to ask for some different behaviors once they cross the threshold of the classroom? Absolutely. So take a second and think about what that means, an active listener. An active listener. I'm going to start here, and I want you to tell me what you shouldn't do.
I had said that sometimes about the eye contact.
Right.
We expect eye contact, but not always. There are cultural issues to eye contact, all types of things to eye contact. Just basically being able to repeat what you said, write it if necessary, just what does the end result look like? Because it looks different for everybody with active listening. There are very many different definitions to active listening, because I'm one of those, I pay attention, but I look away when I'm processing. Because when I look at people, it's distracting and I lose my thoughts. So someone could very well say she's not paying attention because she looked away, when really I'm processing, because I visualize what you said.
Right.
So there are pictures that get created in my head about what you said. It helps me retain the information better.
And introverts, extroverts. Mm-hmm. Excellent. One thing you shouldn't do.
Go off topic.
Get off topic. Absolutely, yeah. How about here? How about one thing you should do as an active listener?
I'll go to her. Body language is active. It may be something that you're unfamiliar with, but everybody has an active type of body language that they're doing, looking away and perceiving things or visualizing. It's the most diverse thing that you can see in active listening.
Right.
Ask clarifying questions.
Ask clarifying questions. That's a really good one. Yeah, that really does mean that you're listening. Repeat what they're saying, right? Do you mean, can I rephrase this? Sometimes those things. So, go ahead.
Facial recognition.
Facial, yeah.
I can see when the light's on or not with their facial expression.
Right. How about here?
Being able to apply and process what somebody's saying, not just actually hear the words.
Right. Apply and process what someone's saying, not just hear the words. Yes, ma'am.
I've seen it as a sort of a cultural thing, because a lot of times I'll be doing something and the kids will come up and want to talk to me, and I may be typing or doing something and they'll stop like I'm not paying attention to them.
Right.
But then they want me facing them and looking, and then when I talk to them, they want to do the body language or be involved somewhere else, so that, it's like I'm listening to what you're saying, because I do the same thing. I get engrossed in what they're saying and process it, and a lot of times they don't understand that. So it's very hard to really determine based on everything I've heard.
Absolutely. And active listening has a huge part in reading comprehension too, right? Think about that. Because even though you think about active listening, if you have someone who reads aloud, they do it because they're listening to themselves, right? So how do you teach them to listen to themselves and what they sound like? Get out those tubaloos, right?
I was going to say, piggybacking off what they were saying, the introvert, extrovert type of personality,
right.
They might not respond or feel comfortable speaking out or even like whole eye contact and everything, like they are actually trying to hide.
Well, one of the things that I used to do for students when active listening, right? Because you can once you get to know your students, you can look at them and tell whether they're actively listening or not. And that's important, right? So I will talk about my son one last time. He was born 70% deaf, had 4 sets of tubes in his ears before he was a year old. So back 26 years ago, they did not encourage you to teach children sign language, but I taught him sign language. And to this day, he knows sign language. And I could look at him across the yard and go, Cole, right? Or ugly, So in the classroom, I would see somebody not actively listening. If I knew you and I were talking all the time about listening, not listening, you and I would come up with a symbol, a little sign, whether it was a tap on your desk, a pat on your back, whatever it was. That was something you and I decided for ourselves to say, oh, get you back on track. I need you right here listening, right? need you right here listening. So think about those kinds of techniques, training your teachers as well, because that was huge. Because the last thing you want is to be telling a student in front of everybody else to pay attention and listen, right? You do that, you just shut them down all the way, close the book, you're not getting anything from them the rest of the period or the rest of the class, right? So think about those things, right? Because that active listener, it looks very different person to person. But when you notice that it's not happening, how do you re-engage? How do you re-engage as an administrator? How do you re-engage as a teacher? How do you teach your students to re-engage each other? Because maybe you're going to need to sit there and go, pay attention, right? You've teamed them up, right? She could convince you to collaborate, right? Or be a more effective communicator. You pair them up, you get them to work and elevate each other, right? So then what's your next step? And I said ACE it together because that's one of the things that ACE does. We have a hashtag ACE it together. We really encourage our educators, whether you're a student at ACE or not, to come together and figure out how you put pieces and parts, right? And just because it looks like this for one period doesn't mean like it's going to look like for this period, or at the elementary school. Just because it did it this year doesn't mean that you're going to be able to pull that plan out and follow it exactly the next year. So what are you going to do to ACE it together, right? To really elevate community contributors, quality producers, effective communicators, self-directed learners, and active listeners. So this is creating collaborative leadership. Once again, who can be a leader? Anybody, right? So when we're creating that collaboration, that is a culture that you can really, really get involved with, right? Because the students have ownership and feel empowered to be leaders. And good students lead other students, right? Bad students do too, by the way, right? Bad students do too. So if you don't teach them how to be or encourage them to be good communicators, you're going to have a whole nother different conversation on your hands. So here's my information. It's very easy. It's my first name, my last name, ACE, American College of Education at EDU. Again, American College of Education, we are 100% online. We have bachelor's programs, but we really focus, and our heart is with educators to give them individual classes or programs to elevate your education and do a lane change or get you to where you need to be. So again, 100% online, lots of different programs dedicated just to educators. Hopefully it was helpful, and thanks so much, and have a great rest of your day.